Salena, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you. Congratulations on the new book. The first book was so awesome, and I think an introductory to Trump voters for so many of the woke world after the first election. This new book, Butler, The Untold Story of the Near Assassination of Donald Trump. I love this because, well, I'll let you tell it, because it's not just that you're some reporter covering it. You were in a very, very unique situation on that fateful day.
I really was. And of course, as you know this, you've dealt with the press. And when you're a reporter, never expect whatever was supposed to happen to happen. So the morning that I go to Butler, I'm supposed to interview President Trump before the rally. And I cannot express to your listeners enough how hot it was that day. I think it was 103. So I'm standing in Butler in an open field at the farm complex. There's so many people there and tons of reporters. And I get a text being told, Salena, your interview has been changed. And so in my head, I'm thinking, oh, well, here it comes. It's not going to happen. That's just the way you have to roll. And they're like, no, it's going to happen. We're running late. We'll do it after the rally. I'm like, okay. And so I'm thinking there's still a chance this is not going to happen. Right. But I'm there with my daughter, who's a photojournalist. But I also dragged my son-in-law along because I didn't want to carry all the equipment. I wanted to make him to carry the equipment so I wouldn't be all hot and sweaty, but that happened anyways. Trump gets there, and his name was Michelle. He's the spokesperson. He was a campaign spokesperson. He goes, "It's go time." I'm like, "What do you mean it's go time? I thought I was doing it after." He goes, "Let's go." I'm like, "Okay, I'm ready." So I grab my daughter, I grab my son-in-law. We go flying into the back of the event, and it's the click line, right? And if for those who
which is where VIPs take photos. That's where the local, when you're before an event, the president does photos with VIPs, elected officials, et cetera, big donors.
Right. And at the time, it was all state troopers, right? And oftentimes the Trump campaign just brings in regular people out in the crowd, and they get to meet the president. It's actually, I wish more people got to see this because it's actually very endearing. There's a lot of hugs. He spends a lot of time talking with them. Anyways, I get back there and I look around and I said to Michelle, where am I doing this interview? And he looked at me and he goes, I actually have no idea. So he goes around and he asks the president, and he comes back and he goes, you're not doing the interview. And I'm like, is it being canceled? And he goes, no. You're still going to Bedminster. I forgot that part. They told me that I'm going to do the interview on the plane flying from Butler to Bedminster.
Wait, hold on. You go to this rally, you think you're interviewing President Trump before or after the rally, and the next thing you know, they're like, "Hey, by the way, I hope you packed an overnight bag. You're coming on the plane with us to Bedminster, New Jersey."
Yeah. I forgot that part. Yeah.
That's just a little small. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you adapt though, right? I didn't have an overnight bag.
Welcome to Trump world.
But, the campaign said, instead of doing a quick interview, why don't you fly with the president to Bedminster from Butler? And I'm like, okay. Didn't have that on my bingo card. So that's what happened. So, I'm in the back now thinking it's been changed again. And he said, no, you're still going to Bedminster. He just wants to say hi to you. I'm like, oh, okay. So I go in. He's like, Salena, you have the best hair in journalism. He asked about my grandchildren. He said, I'm looking forward to the interview. And then I left. And at that point, they couldn't get me and Shannon and Michael back to the riser, right?
Okay,
so
they said where the press covers it.
Where the press covers him, because at that point that access had been closed off. He's ready to go out to the on stage. And so they said, well, just go in the buffer. that's how I ended up being in the buffer when he was
Which
shot
is the
at.
place, which, by the way, just again, to give people, so there's a fence, like usually a barrier where the crowd stops, and then an area between him and the stage where he's speaking from so that, for security purposes, so he can't get too close. It's like the mosh pit at a concert.
Yeah, it's like this well. And it was mostly, it was 5 photojournalists there, and myself and my daughter, and was a photojournalist, and my son-in-law, who's not, but he had a camera, so he was taking photos too. And we go. The president comes out. We're standing right there. He waves to the crowd. He goes over and he to the podium, waves to the crowd. And he starts, and I go off to the side along with my daughter and son-in-law, still taking photos. I have my recorder on. And the president does 2 things that I've never seen him do before. And I have covered, as you know, Sean, about a zillion rallies. He turns, first of all, a chart comes down. And I was like, what is he, Ross Perot? Like, he never has a chart.
How many people in the audience just got that one? Yeah.
Yeah. And then the president is his relationship with the people that attend a rally is very transactional.
Yeah.
He feeds off of them. They feed off of him. It's a very, very emotional bond. Because of that, he never looks away from them. Now, he'll face this way or this way, but it's the whole body. He never turns his head. The chart comes down. He turns his head. I'm like, what is he doing? Then pop, 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 pop. I hear the first 4 shots. I see him go down, but I know I know he took himself down. He didn't fall down. Because I'm that close. At this point, I'm about 4 feet away.
Jeez.
And he kneels down, and I can see the blood go across his face, but I can't see where he's hit initially because his ear is on the other side of me. And then at that same moment, all of these agents surround him. They put a protective stance around him. And then I hear the next 4 shots. It's at that moment that Michelle takes me down because, being a reporter, I'm covering it, right? I'm not reacting as a normal human being. I'm covering it. And he just takes me down at that moment. I can hear the whole conversation between him and his agents. And it's in the book. It's really detailed in the book.
I'm excited.
But the funniest, if you can be funny, he kept saying, I want to put my shoes on. And one of the agents had knocked his shoes off when they put this protective stance around him. And at one point, one of the agents, and they want to go. And at one point, one of the agents says, fine. And he gets his shoes on.
Oh boy. All right. Well, I'm excited to read this because I think it's such again, it wasn't like someone just covering this. You were feet from this happening, and your perspective is like nobody else's, which is great. I do want to pivot though to the latest thing that you wrote, which actually there's a few things you wrote, but the one that I want to focus on right now is actually a piece that you wrote for the Washington Post. And there's a couple things about it. I want to get to the substance of it most of all. But I didn't realize this until I dug in a little bit more, that you are going to offer people via the Washington Post a monthly column and give them insight into Pennsylvania. And so before I get to the first column where you wrote about Dave McCormick and John Fetterman, why did you think this was an important project to take on? And did they come to you? Or did you come to them? And why is Pennsylvania the focus of it? Why should everybody in the rest of the 49 states care? What the uniqueness of Pennsylvania?
So they came to me right before the election, right after. I can't remember exactly the timing. And I think that what the Post really wants is for, Pennsylvania at this moment is the most important state. And not just politically.
Says the person from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I've been telling people this for years. Nobody listened to me. But not only politically, but also culturally. And the culture really impacts our politics. And people don't seem to understand that. People have this perception that Pennsylvania is Philadelphia and to a lesser extent, Pittsburgh. But there is 65 other counties that actually decide our elections. They're very, very different from Philadelphia and more different than Pittsburgh. You know, Pennsylvania, a large portion of Pennsylvania is Appalachia. That is a part of the country that people just sort of don't understand.
Including most of the media, right? I mean, that's where you've excelled, both with your first book, The Revolt, The Great Revolt, and now this is that part of what you bring is for a lot of these leftist, elitist, arrogant reporters is a sense, and this is why I wanted to hear how it came up, because you bring a perspective that they can't fathom. They just don't understand who these people. It's like a petting zoo. Who are these people that vote for Trump? Where are they? And you bring that perspective.
Right. And I think, and this is, and that's the other part of this book. I consistently understood that President Trump was going to win this election in Pennsylvania, despite what the polling showed and despite the narrative, because I was on the ground and I understand the state. And so you will see a very different election coverage and an understanding in the book Butler, and a very intimate one. But here's a case in point. Do you if your listeners remember Joe Biden in the State of the Union address, which is arguably his last best speech in February 2024, he brought up shrinkflation, right? And made a big
candy
deal.
bars.
Yeah, candy bars. Made a really big deal about it and pointed to Bob Casey and said, "You're going to be in charge of that." That's the now former U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania. And everyone that was dissecting that was saying, well, you know, populists are going to be like really into this, right? Like, who doesn't like big corporations? Well, you know, Pennsylvania is home of the snack belt, right? I don't think Casey didn't know this because I asked him. They don't understand that 80% of the snacks consumed in this country are made in 6 counties in Pennsylvania.
I didn't know that. I thought M&M Mars is in New Jersey. I only know that because I worked for a member of Congress from central New Jersey at one point back in the 90s. I didn't know that at all. Well, obviously Hershey, Pennsylvania makes sense.
But all the pretzels, all the potato chips, they're all made in Pennsylvania. They're farmed. The wheat is grown here. The cows are on our fields here. The manufacturers are here. The truck drivers, the farmers, everything that goes into making that snack that Joe Biden and Bob Casey decided to make an enemy of impacts voters. You can live in a C-suite. You can live in a county in a C-suite outside of Philadelphia, and you are not going to vote for the person that's going after your industry. So they don't. So while
Salena, that brings me to your story, though, your article in the Post, right? It's, to me, what I think is so fascinating, and this is what you write in the thing, and you said, in November, a state elected a conservative, Trump-supporting military veteran and former hedge fund CEO Dave McCormick to be U.S. Senator. Just 2 years earlier, many of the same voters helped to elect John Fetterman, a Democrat and strong defender of legal marijuana who brags about his F rating from the National Rifle Association. How do we square that you're talking about the snack capital of the world, these truckers and farmers, and yet you guys elect an unbelievably conservative champion in Dave McCormick and then John Fetterman?
Well, because the working class has changed, okay? And the working class is what put both of these men into office. I will give Fetterman and McCormick credit for showing up in places that like Trump did, right? In places nobody else would. It is very hard and Shapiro as well, right? So we elected all of them. But these men understood the importance of showing up and listening and talking to people about their lives and their concerns in a way that was authentic and real to them. And that is why all 4 of them were elected. Now Fetterman and Shapiro, while they're very, very different in terms of their belief system as Democrats, they're also moderating in their beliefs. Now, I wouldn't call them moderate.
Is that real? With Fetterman,
Yeah.
I don't buy it. I just don't. I'm sorry. I think it's a shtick. I think he wears the Carhartt hoodie and just because it's a shtick, he wants to be seen. Like, I don't.
I've been covering John Fetterman for 20 years since he first ran for mayor in Braddock and won by one absentee ballot. It's real.
Okay.
It's very real. I would argue the only time we didn't really see the true breadth of John Fetterman was in the 2022 election after the stroke. And not only was he recovering from the stroke, he was also recovering from depression. You remember he checked himself in.
Yeah,
Both of them can have debilitating impacts on your messaging.
Yeah.
I think I don't think he's going to be a Republican, but he has always been his own person. Remember, his parents are Republicans. They had a Trump and a Fetterman sign in their yard.
All right.
Okay?
Last thing, in 30 seconds, I want
to. That's Pennsylvania.
Beyond Pennsylvania, I got 30 seconds left. I want to ask you this. You also wrote a great story about the Ohio governor's race. Vivek Ramaswamy made his big announcement. He's going to run against Lieutenant Governor Jim Tressel, who just took office because the governor, DeWine, appointed the former lieutenant governor to the Senate seat. Tressel is a former Ohio State football coach, obviously a very popular guy. How, in 30 seconds, how do you think that race in Ohio plays out?
Well, so Tressel hasn't said that he's going to run yet. However, he's a legend in Ohio. Like, we can't take that away from him. And Dave Yost has won 3 statewide elections. He's the AG. But also Vivek has Trump's endorsement. So I think it's going to be really, really interesting. I don't think any Democrat's going to play in the state. They don't have a good bench. They do have the former woman that ran the COVID response in Ohio running as their candidate, but I don't think she's very popular with either party.
Okay. Salena, I literally could spend like 3 hours with you. But Erica Donalds has kind of come up. We're going to talk about education with her. I'm so excited. I want to have you back before the book comes out. The name of the book is Butler, The Untold Story of the Near Assassination of Donald Trump and the Fight for America's Heartland. It's available for pre-order now. We'll put that link in the show notes as well if you're interested in ordering. And I would strongly support anybody going and making sure you buy it. It helps Salena show how much, how sales and obviously pre-order. So go do that. And I love the writing that you do, mostly in the Examiner, but yes, these stories in the Post, as much as I hate to give them credit, it's only because of you. So thank you for joining us today. Keep up the great work, and I hope you come back soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.